Well, unfortunately, you're correct, Alex. What we have here is Iraq Part 2. You remember how the what I call the fawning corporate media, how they spun Iraq. So we were all led to believe that there were weapons of mass destruction there and ties between Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda. None of that was right. And none of the hype that's going on now with respect to the, quote, Iranian nuclear threat, end quote, is right. It's hyperbole to the nth degree, and people in Congress in particular are having a feeding frenzy on things that they have so warped that the American citizen can't really understand what's going on.
Okay.
Let me try to put it in some context.
Okay, do that after we go to break. We're going to come back. I'm going to give you the floor. I want you to break this down because I remember 2.5 weeks ago, the Iranians have got all these different sites. The UN admits it can't get uranium above 95% to make weapons. The Iranians announce, here's a new site we've got. And then the media hoaxes it, saying they've got it. It was secret. We found it. Boy, we better attack them. Netanyahu's making secret trips to Russia to get green light. Russia starts saying, we support sanctions. What's your intel? Does that mean Russia's going to back an attack? We'll talk about it all with Ray McGovern. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Well, I'm not the kind of kissing.
Well, we have a former senior CIA analyst, Ray McGovern, whose information has proven over the years to be very, very accurate in hindsight, joining us. Okay, Ray, you were getting into what's really happening with Iran and these sites and what you agreed is a big hoax, saying that it was a secret site and they're going to nuke us in 45 minutes, changing the last letter in Iraq to Iran.
Yeah. Well, you got it, Alex. That's what's going on. It's hype that's really unconscionable. Let me go back a little ways here, because after the debacle on Iraq, when my former colleagues were visited several times by the vice president, his name is Cheney, and told to write a national intelligence estimate that said Saddam Hussein has all manner of weapons of mass destruction. That was October 1, 2002. After that happened, my former colleagues rose to the occasion and said, no more of that stuff. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to tell the truth, which reverts back to the kind of atmosphere in which I worked. The only place in town without a political agenda, the only place in town that can tell the president without fear or favor what we really think. Now, to make that clear, when people say, well, how come you torture people? There are basically two CIAs, all right? The one that obeys the president's wishes and is able to do that under the National Security Act of 1947, the one that goes off and kidnaps people and tortures people, that's not the CIA I worked in. I worked in the analysis part and the part of the covert agency that collected information, okay? And what I'm talking about now is that CIA. Now, what did we do? Well, what did my former colleagues do? Well, what we did, I have to coin a phrase, is in 2006, we gave Bush and Cheney the finger, Tom Finger, F-I-N-G-A-R, who was an honest estimator, incredibly bright, came from the State Department, and ran an estimate on Iran and its nuclear program, which is a bottom-up estimate. They spent months and months and months relooking at all the previous work, taking into account the most recent information, and they came up with some startling conclusions that were at direct variance with what President and Cheney had been telling the world, okay? Number one, the NIE judged with, quote, high confidence, end quote, that Iran had stopped a covert nuclear weapons program in the fall of 2003 and had not resumed work on this nuclear weapons aspect of its program. This is an essential part of a nuclear program. They stopped work on it, and the latest briefing of Congress indicates that the CIA believes, and the intelligence community as well, that they did not restart this. So this is a very curious way to be, as Defense Secretary Gates says, hell-bent on developing a nuclear weapon if you stopped, let's see, what's the math here? 6 years ago, okay?
And, sir, didn't they say at the time in the highly publicized report that if Iran restarted it, it would take 9 years?
Oh, well, they said 2015 or so. It was a kind of a bracketed thing, and it all depended on how quickly they could enrich uranium to the weapons grade, and also what kind of delivery system they could get. Now, no one, from a technical point of view, said that Iran could be a threat to the United States in any time frame soon. They have no ICBMs. They have no method of delivering a weapon, even if they restarted their work on weapons. To whom are they a threat? Well, there's one other country in that region who actually has about 200, some people say 300 nuclear weapons deliverable by aircraft, by submarines, by surface ships, by missile. And the name of that country is Israel. And no one should shy away from mentioning that, because that is the fly in the ointment. If there's a country in that region that has not signed the non-proliferation agreement and has this kind of capability, and the United States shows itself willing to invade a country like Iraq without that capability, well, if I were an Iranian, I would think long and hard about being able to have the option to have that capability. And so this estimate said, we don't know whether the Iranians would develop a nuclear weapon, but the evidence is not there. We will know in great time, in enough time to know and take precautions and get them to negotiate. But
Ray,
the bottom line here is there is time to negotiate.
Long segment coming up. We'll continue there. Look at the latest hype. Iran announces they've got a facility. The media spins it and says, we found a secret facility. We've got to attack. We'll be right back.
We're on the march.
Okay, going back to Ray McGovern. Ray, you'd left off with the CIA assessment, 2006, and then now we fast forward to they've taken some troops out of Iraq, replaced them with contractors, put 20 to 30,000 more troops and contractors in Afghanistan. They're saying on the news, we caught a secret nuke factory. We caught them. We caught them. It's incredible. And then a few days later, did we catch them? Well, they made the announcement after they knew we knew. So break down what's really happening today.
Yeah. Well, we caught them several months ago, Alex, and they announced the existence of this new enrichment plant on their own initiative, and they did that just a week before the negotiations start. Your listeners perhaps need to be reminded that tomorrow is a very big day, because the 5 Security Council members, plus Germany and Iran, are getting together to talk about the Iranian nuclear program. Now, that's why the hype is the pitch that it is. They're trying to, the media here are trying to hype this thing up and say, well, look, now we've discovered a new enrichment facility. Well, we know about that enrichment facility for months. And now the Iranians are claiming that they're well within their rights under the treaties governing this kind of activity to announce the establishment of this thing, because it's several months more before it gets ready to enrich anything. So the hype is there, and the bottom line, people just need to realize that Iran is nowhere near. Iran is years and years away from a nuclear weapon. Okay, I'll repeat that one more time. Years away from a nuclear weapon. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe what the Israelis are saying. These are technical questions, okay? Now, when I did the President's Daily Brief, I didn't write all the briefs. Obviously, I know who the good analysts were, the honest technical people, and it was a privilege to put their stuff in readable form and give it to the president. Well, now I still know those folks, and I'm not getting this from McGovern's head. I'm getting it from people like Greg Thielman, who ran the State Department, INR, the research there, and the intelligence outfit of the State Department, and was right. His people were right before the Iraq estimate there in 2002, And he now writes for the Arms Control Association, and it's the best stuff out there. Just Google Arms Control Association. You'll see what Greg Thielman is putting together.
Well, Ray, boil it down for us then. What does Iran really have? What are they really doing? And A, why can Israel have weapons? Why can Pakistan have weapons? Why is that okay? But Iran's nowhere near it, and we're hearing we got to put sanctions on them. We got to attack them. They could kill us any minute.